Hi, I'm Peter Erskine, and I'd like you to say hello to my little friend. 4.5 inches by 14 inches in diameter. This is the Peter Erskine Signature Jazz Snare Drum. Because every drummer has a number of tools in their toolbox, and snare drums are probably the most prolific part of our instrument collections. No matter what style of music you play, I think it's important that you have a drum that is not only articulate but very responsive, that it can capture all the nuance and yet spin on a dime and give you all the power that you might want. TAMA, it's engineered what we think is the ultimate snare drum. Spruce and maple, 8 lugs. We do have a reinforcing ring, also made of maple and spruce, on the top side, the batter side only. Got my favorite snare throw off. TAMA was even so kind as to allow my request for a wood grommet for the air vent hole. It's just a beautiful drum. The wood finish ensures that it will fit in with any drummer's drum set. You get to a point in life and you start thinking about, well, what am I going to leave behind? And I've left a lot of recordings behind, and I'm grateful for all the opportunities I've had to perform. But now I can look forward to not only more performances, but to my sound becoming part of more and more drummers' personal libraries and part of the world. So thank you for joining us and spreading the good word about the TAMA Jazz Snare Drum. Hey, everyone. Greetings. Happy New Year. I'm feeling grateful on 2 counts, well, maybe 3 counts. Number one, this snare drum is just such an exciting thing. It marks a moment in this long association that I've now enjoyed with TAMA. uh, having a proper signature snare drum, the type of snare drum that everyone can use for every type of situation. Um, and we'll get more into the unique features of why the world needs another snare drum and why we decided to call this the jazz snare drum. The next thing I'm grateful for is that I got my first vaccine shot today, and doesn't hurt too much. And I hope that everyone stays healthy and safe. It seems like there's light at the end of this tunnel. Um, and the third reason I'm really grateful is that I'm joined by my dear friend, an incredible drummer, and the guy who really convinced me. He said, "Peter, these are the drums you should be playing." And so he opened my eyes, he opened my ears. Let's open our hearts and put our hands together for Mr. Simon Phillips, who joins us here. Simon?
Ta-da!
There he is. Hey.
Hi, Peter. Thank you.
Hi.
Yeah, good to be here.
It's wonderful to see you. I'm just going to tell a very quick story. The first occasion I got to really hear what Simon could do, I was standing next to Joe Zawinul. And we were sharing a concert. It was somewhere in Spain, Simon. I
Yep,
remember it was in a bull ring.
yep.
And you were playing with Jeff Beck.
Hmm.
And at one point during your set, Joe and I are way up in uh, backstage behind you, but kind of way up above in this bull ring. And you guys are playing, and Joe turns to me and he kind of points towards you and he goes, "Why can't you do that?"
Oh, that's so Joe, isn't it, though? That's
Yeah, I said,
fantastic.
I don't know.
Oh, well, and I remember that gig very, very well. We were on the same kind of routing, actually. We bumped into each other in Copenhagen at the Plaza
Yes.
Hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And Stanley was with us, Stanley Clark. And I do remember that Stanley and Jacko it was like a bit of a standoff, you know? It was like two gunslingers. It was very funny, but that was only over lunch.
They uh, a story about one of the I guess really one of the you and Billy were really and Elvin were the maybe Lenny as well. You guys were really the original Tama
Yeah,
artists.
yeah.
Um, well, uh, this was 1978, and I had just flown out to Hollywood to join Weather Report, and I was supposed to meet Jocko at the hotel, and I thought we'd have dinner. He was nowhere to be found. The next day, he told me, he said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't at the hotel to meet you. I was up the street at the Roxy. That's a club on Sunset Strip, and he had been invited by CBS Records. Billy Cobham had an album release gig or event, and CBS had a table, a long table in front of the stage, uh, where a lot of their artists were seated. And Jocko was there, I guess, seated either next to or across from Stanley Clark. Um, and there was a large bowl of with fruit and nuts and raisins and grapes and cashews. And Jocko told me, he said, "Yeah, Billy started playing a solo, and Stanley and I started throwing grapes, trying to see who could hit his sticks in midair." And and I didn't know if it was true or not, and I never dared ask Billy, but I did ask Stanley
Yeah.
a few years ago, and Stanley went, "Yeah, that
Yes.
happened."
I remember Stanley told me that actually. I
Oh, he
heard the
did.
story. Oh, yeah, back in early 79 or 80. Oh, yes, absolutely. That was funny.
Well, Billy, on behalf of my old bandmate, I apologize. So, anyway, I was delighted that of the two snare drums that exist in this moment in time, uh, Simon, one of them was sent to you for
Yes.
your kind of review and consideration. Yay! And you like it, right?
You know, well, let's put it like this. You know, as I'm sure you know, you get offered. Well, I certainly do. Certain gigs, you turn up to the sound check, and then there's some guy, very shy guy, in the corner in the wings, and then he comes up with his fiber case or whatever case, and you go, oh dear, it's going to be another one of those. And out comes this beautiful snare drum, and it's made. You look at it and you go, wow, this must have taken you a year to make. And the and I go, well, okay, but we're doing a sound check, but if I've got time, I'll pop it up. And it always sounds, well, that sounds pretty good. But there's always one very interesting thing, that no matter how good anything really does, a cymbal, a tom tom, a kick drum, a snare, but the snare is really the most important, because it is the thing that's your center, really.
Mm-hmm.
um does it work musically? And
Mm-hmm.
you know what, this has happened a few times where I've put it up, and we were still sound checking, and I tried a song with what I thought was a really nice sounding snare drum, and then halfway through the song I went, no, this is not working. I want my old one back. Isn't that funny? So um, that to me is always the proof of the pudding, is does it work musically? Well, let's go to this. So I took it out of the case, and I was very interested in the Slingerland type hoops,
Mm-hmm.
which I thought was quite curious. And you were a Slingerland player for a long time.
Yes.
Yes, I remember that. And so I was very curious about that. And of course, very curious about the no reinforcing hoop on the bottom, which I can,
Mm-hmm.
uh, we tried that a lot actually back in doing my first signature drum, actually. And I still
Ah.
wasn't quite sure what it did. But then as soon as I hit this, I went, ooh, ooh. So I popped it up, and I was amazed at the immediate brightness of the drum. In other words, the way the snares react.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, ooh, that's lovely. The other thing about a snare drum, it's it's a mixture of a tom tom and a snare, or a tom tom with snares on. There are snare drums that do sound like a tom tom with snares on. There's a snare drum that everything works together. And that, I think, is the most difficult part, regardless of the depth of the shell, the material, or whatever, is does it work all in one? Has it got that lovely ring where there's just enough, not too much? Do the snares work no matter where you are on the head? And what I found was a beautifully responsive drum and a beautiful tone. And of course, the other thing was I didn't even touch the tuning. You tuned
Mm-hmm.
it, and it was beautiful. And I went, "Oh, great!" So I think we actually have a very similar tuning idea. But yes, so I actually thought, well, I'm gonna lay a track with it, and it's just a demo track. I've been writing some new music for my next album, and so I thought I'd lay it down and just see how it records, because you can never really tell until you hear the playback. And absolutely, I didn't touch anything, and it was flat, no EQ, just an SM, actually a Beta 56. I'm using that just here for
Mm-hmm.
the moment. I usually use a 57, and beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So my next test would be to steal it from you and take it on tour.
Positively.
But
Please
yeah, I
do.
mean, so far, yeah, I mean, lovely. I think you should tell us a bit more about it. From your
Well,
design point of view.
well, thank you for that. That was thrilling. The okay, so you balance the urge of uh, I want a snare drum, and does the world really need another snare drum with everything else going
Yeah.
on? And yeah, because a snare drum that myself, for example, that I can use in what I would call a jazz setting. Um, and I've always been drawn to the shallower sized drums. Um, the very first signature drum that Yamaha ever put on the market was a 4x14 snare drum that had my name on it. It was a limited edition. They weren't quite committed or sure that the idea would work, having a signature drum. And this was not an original idea of mine. The Max Roach signature snare drum from the 50s that the Gretsch made for him was also a 4x14.
Mm.
So the immediacy of the shallower shell was attractive. Having less hardware on it allowed the drum to reach a lower fundamental of tone than if we had, had like 10 lugs. So 8 lugs seemed to be a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
The idea about the reinforcing ring being on the top only, that was a contribution of my good friend Bill Platt, recently retired, 40 years as a principal percussionist and snare drummer in the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra. And he told me, he said, Bob Becker from Nexus, he said that's always been on his wish list, and I think you should try it. The theory being that the batter head has more focus, the bottom head's a little more free to ring, and I think this in tandem kind of contributes to that ring you were talking about, the drum.
Mm-hmm.
With these hoops, however, it's not too boingy or strident. So just the way everything does seem to interact. The washers, that idea came from you, because I was told that this was you liked just having the metal washers and not the lock. I forget the name of it, Sam. You may have to jump in here and help me, but I was advised that to make this just like Simon likes.
Oh.
And we
Yes,
did.
yeah, Simon, Peter, it's just a metal washer and a plastic O-ring. We do have a tight lock washer, which is a metal piece with a plastic piece inside of it, so a little bit different.
Oh, yes, and they grip a little bit more, don't they?
Yes, they grip a
Yeah.
little bit more. Exactly.
Yeah, I didn't like the way that affected the preciseness of the tuning. I, want the key to move easily around. Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah. Forgotten that.
Speaking of tuning, I mean, it's a very easy drum to tune.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
And we have the snare adjustments on both sides, which I like to have. Sometimes I just want to be able to, if for no other reason, if my left hand is busy, the right hand can just reach down and make that adjustment if I feel it needs it.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
The wood finish, it's a beautiful wood finish, and it's probably the most universal, either that or a solid black. So it would fit in with any drummer's drum set. And, we all, there's so many jokes and memes I see on Facebook or Instagram, or, jokes about, the wife comes home and there are flowers everywhere, bouquets of roses. She goes, "Oh no, he's bought another snare drum." And yeah, snare drums are just a great thing. They're whether you're having a midlife crisis or not, I think it's the one thing you can add to your drum set.
Yeah.
That will just open doors and windows for you musically, and it's fun, and it's great to know that you have that as part of your toolbox or instrument collection. Yeah. And so, whether you like metal drums or deep drums or super shallow drums, I felt that this was a drum that when you're going to play brushes, if you need that really delightfully quick response, and yet, as I mentioned in the video, you can turn on a dime and you got the power.
Yeah.
that this was the drum that would do it. And so I feel like this for me, as far as snare drums go, this is home.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is my
Now,
home page.
what about the choice of wood? How did you come up with spruce and maple?
Well, the spruce was kind of the happy accident of just playing on one of the all spruce, not only snare drums but drum kits that TAMA had started making, and I was in Europe, and then we got one of those drum sets at USC, and I was just dazzled by how good it sounded in any number of situations, and our students, a drum set in a university really gets a workout, and just how beautifully it held up, and it was a wood drum set. Um, but maple always will supply that extra sparkle and power.
Mm-hmm.
So that seemed also, without getting into the specifics about the price, my goal, Simon, was for this drum to be as affordable as possible. So this was not a get rich quick
Right.
scheme. That's not important. What was important to me was that this drum could become part of as many drummers as possible could have access to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't want to go for one of the more exotic, expensive woods. The great thing about this drum, and when people find out what it costs, the street price is, I think, pretty stunning. It's made in Japan. It's made at the Star factory.
Yeah.
So it's really a best of all TAMA worlds.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I ask, what is the street price? Do we know?
Are we allowed to reveal that, Sam?
Not quite yet. We're not allowed
Oh.
to reveal that yet. Yeah.
Oh,
Someday soon.
Someday
1
soon.
billion.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's yeah, it's surprisingly affordable, and that was the goal. Was to make it that, was not to like, oh, let's make a snare drum so Peter can make a lot of money. Not to get into a discussion of money. And if anyone out there thinks the drum companies pay drummers money to play their drums, that's a fiction. The only reason any of us are playing any of these drums is because we're looking, like I said, we're looking for home. We're looking for a drum home. I found it. And Simon, again, I thank you for opening my eyes, because, I'll be honest, folks, a few years ago when I would walk, I just always thought TAMA was more of a rock and roll drum. Simon and Elvin and Billy notwithstanding over the years. And when I finally got a chance to play the Star drum set, I've told this story before. I took him on a gig, and I invited my wife. It was a small club in the San Fernando Valley, and didn't say anything except say, "I just want you to come hear the band tonight." And she saw it was a different drum set, and she came up to me and she said, "I really like the way these drums are making you play."
Ah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I said, well, that's it,
Yeah.
Anyway, what's happened with the pandemic, folks. This is my stage. This is my teaching studio. This is my recording studio. Whoops. The camera turned off. This is my, anyway, this is where I'm doing everything these days. And so I was getting ready to mourn the loss of my career, and we've all been affected financially, if not in terms of health, emotionally, and so the how should I put this? I'm getting a little bit heavy here, so I apologize. But a few years ago, someone mentioned something to me, a close friend of mine. He called it the gift of cancer. And I said, what? And the gift that comes when we either face mortality or I'm not suggesting or hinting that I've got cancer, but this has been such a devastating set of circumstances for so many people. But there's a gift to it, and we've all, I think, been able to peek at these other aspects of ourselves and about life and the universe. And so all to say, being in the kind of creative trenches, coming up with the final design aspects and the sound of this snare drum. Trust me, trying to make money off this thing was the last thing on anybody's mind.
Yeah.
And the TAMA engineers, as well as the strata of marketing people, whatever, they were a little bit like, what? And I said, yeah, we need to bring it in at this street price. And they made it happen.
Wow.
They tightened their belts and opened up their minds and figured out how to do it.
Yeah.
And the drum I have here, this is a production model, and it's just absolutely so much fun to play.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's Christmas.
It is beautiful.
Christmas. It's Christmas a month later.
I should send you just a rough mix of that demo with this drum, just for
Please
fun.
do.
You know.
Yeah.
It's very rough, and you know. I'd like to go back to the hoops. I was very curious as soon as I heard the drum, and I thought, I've never used a hoop with an inverted. I don't know what you call it.
We call that our sound arc hoop.
We call it our what?
Sound arc. That's what we call it.
arc.
Yeah, we call it our sound arc hoop. Right.
Oh, I
call it a stick saver.
Yeah.
Which
as
was
opposed
that?
to stick chopper.
Yeah.
Which
Well,
is yeah.
Do you remember Slingerland used to have? They had a straight up
Mhm.
hoop, and my technique has never been like primo in terms of not just ability, but also being precise. I could do certain things, but I remember with the Kenton band, things I got a little bit wild, and one day I came down on a backbeat, and the finger, and I finished the concert just for 2 or 3 tunes. The tears were just streaming down my face because it hurt so bad. And so, yes, this hoop, I like it.
Yes.
It's
Well, I was curious enough, and I'd love to go back in a little bit back to the Stan Kenton band actually, but just on the hoops, I was actually very curious, and I thought, I think I'm going to swap hoops. So what I did is I got my let me just grab it.
While you're grabbing the drum, Simon, I'll say this is the heavier of the 2 hoop options that TAMA offers. So instead of a hoop that was similar to like a Supraphonic or a Ludwig drum from the 60s, this is the heavier hoop. And with the Sound Arc, it's as close to a die-cast hoop as you're going to get without it being a die-cast.
Right. Yeah.
Go ahead.
So what I did with this is actually a prototype of what is now known as what's it called?
Monarch.
It is the Monarch. Okay. I get confused. No. This is the 40th anniversary.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, the one after.
Yeah.
So Peter, what I did with the hoops, and it's funny you should mention the old Slingerland hoops and also the old Leedy hoops. I have a 1939 Leedy, which I got here in 1979 from Paul Jameson, and then many years later, it slightly got out of round. I had Craviotti recut it, and if you remember, a few years ago, Leedy became back on the scene, and they were producing everything, the hoops, the lugs, the snare butt, the snare strainer, all brand new, but made in the original way. So I spoke to Leedy, and they sent me, the stick chopper hoops, the release. So this drum, and obviously the coating, the original covering went a long time ago, I think. It's now just natural maple, whatever it was made of, and that drum with those stick choppers is just it's a 6.5, quite thick shell, but it's just so crisp.
Mm.
And I particularly only use that drum for straight ahead, because I know I'm not going to be slamming a backbeat all the time.
Right.
And it is just so beautifully responsive. And that's what led me to have TAMA make these hoops. They're triple flange, but they cut the top flange. So it's almost half the width of a normal triple flange.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it does make a difference. It makes a different sound. So that's why I wanted to swap the hoops over. So I put your hoops onto this drum and my hoops onto your drum, and then tuned it back up. I actually, it was really hard to tell the difference because I couldn't A/B it. It was a question of hit it a few times, remember, and then with a drill and pull it off.
Right.
So it was, I guess it wasn't a very good experiment from that point of view, but it wasn't enough of a sound difference to really, that I could say, even by memory, I could say, oh yes, there is a difference. So it was obviously a small difference. But
Is this a good thing or a bad thing?
what it does show me is that with this being shaved down, it makes this a little stiffer, this hoop, even though it's probably thinner than the arc. But I think what it does is pretty much a similar kind of thing. It makes it very responsive. So I would be curious to do a little bit more with these hoops. In other words, maybe try them out on my main, the production version, see what it does. I was just, but I think it's very interesting, and they do influence the sound of the drum definitely by what you put on the top, even what the material is made out of.
I would agree because, sorry,
Go.
Simon, your hoops are brass, and these ones are steel, the one that are on Peter's drum. So there's a difference too. Probably, especially at least from my experience, the cross stick. The cross stick would be a really big contributor to that. On Peter's drum, that cross stick is nice and crisp and it cuts through. On your drum, I can't remember from memory, but yeah. Yeah.
There's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
lovely. But then,
Ooh, yeah, we heard that.
I was very, very curious to that, and I thought that was a nice touch.
Well, you know what's Simon. I know you'll appreciate that when a drum, the tactile feel of not only playing the drum but just handling the drum, the way when you pick up the drum and touch it. But so for me, this thickness is just a very handy. I like the size. I like the feel of it. It's easy to handle. The fact that these round inwards, and it immediately reminds me of drums when I was younger.
Yes.
The throw off, it's silent. It has it has this lovely tactile sense again that it's pleasing, and of course the quality of the plating is pleasing. It feels, I hate to use the word rich, but I will. It feels rich and has a good quality feel to it. And when you've touched, particularly with hardware, cheap plating, bad chrome plating, it's awful. It just really feels bad. And I think the biggest surprise for me, Sam, was the finish on the shell. I didn't expect it to be so luxurious. I thought at where we were trying to bring the drum in price wise, that that a corner would be cut, and it's just beautiful. You know,
That is a
really.
testament, I think, to Tama in general. Just the attention to detail and things like that, where the finish and the wood grommet. Exactly, that's one of my favorite things.
Yeah.
As far as I know, we're the only company that does that. A wood grommet air for the air vent.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lovely touch, and that was my final uh, request, and it was almost like an afterthought. But when Thomas so readily agreed, I was just like, wow, thank you. It's really great, and playing it on, this is my super mod or neo mod kit. Sorry, with the Duco finish. It's just the most fun drum set. Uh, a 22-inch bass drum that's 10 inches deep. It's amazing. I'm using it for trio recordings here. I'm using it for big bands. I just did this, Simon. I just did this project as a tribute to Maynard Ferguson, and playing a lot of the same charts I played 45 years ago. And did it all in this kit, and the kit was perfect. Have you ever revisited stuff that you did 45 years back?
Yes, I have, and actually more recently. And one of the reasons is because I just finally got myself replaced my turntable, and of course I lost all my vinyl as well. So
Right.
the only vinyls that I have are records that have just been sent to me or given to me by just fans, just people very kind, said, oh, I found this and would you like to have it? And I went, oh, wow, and a couple of them are things that I played on. One with my dad's band.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it's so funny to hear what that was recorded in. I'm thinking it was the first actual album I recorded with him. So I think it was in 71, I think. So I was 14. And it was recorded 8-track or 16-track. Can't remember now.
Back then, probably 8-track.
Yeah.
It was at Chapel Studios in London. And wow, I just put it on for fun the other day. And
well, send me that too. I want to hear that.
it is so funny, and it's like, wow, And that was an old Premiere kit with pre-international size toms, so I couldn't put Remo heads on, and oh man, it was so funny. But yes, you're right. I somebody else sent me another album. Said, hey, I'm listening to this right now. You should check it out. And I remember the sessions very well. It's fun. Yeah.
Not just listening to it, but actually having to play that stuff again. That's a young man's game, some of that music, I was like, holy cow, I said, this is trickier than I remembered it being.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'd love to be an absolute fan now. I first saw you play when you were playing with Stan, and it was a gig that I used to play with my dad. So I knew the venue very well. And Buddy used to play there a lot. It was called, I think, Dunstable Civic Hall.
Oh my goodness!
You remember that? Lovely
Yeah,
building.
it's ringing. It's really ringing a bell,
Yeah.
because
And
that was my first visit. I think first or second visit. Well, if it was 1973, that would have been my first visit to.
Right. That was the birthday in Britain.
Yeah. Okay. That was my first trip to Europe and first visit to the UK. Oh my goodness.
Actually, just a quick aside, because I read a little bit about it, but they mentioned an engineer apart from Wally, and I didn't think that was the right name. Does the name Bill Halverson ring a bell?
My memory's not that great, but Wally was traveling with the band and recording it. This was how nuts it was, because back then you would do Ronnie Scott. So
Yeah.
there was a show like I think it was 9 to 11. No, it was I think it was 8 to 11 and midnight to 3. We did 2 sets each show. So it was 4 sets a night till 3 in the morning at Ronnie Scott's. And then I would get up early because I'd want to go to Buckingham, go to museums, go shopping because the dollar was very strong back in those days. And so I loved shopping in England. It was like, we weren't making that much money on the road. So I would be up by 7 or 8 o'clock. It was insane. And then we would do another one of these things. So when you're young, you do that. But on that tour, maybe the most exciting thing, in addition to getting to play in the UK, did we meet at one of those gigs?
Well,
did we say hello?
I was there with I was very young. Remember, actually, 73 was I was 16, so it was the last year of playing with my dad. And one of the horn players used to always take me to concerts and stuff. So he took me there, and and I knew the people at the place. So I kind of came down to the bottom of the stage and just gawked at you, And eventually you were kind enough to come over, and I got to meet you, and you were just kind of
fun.
Just kind of squatting on the stage, and and I was asking you. Now, question I have is, were you picking up different drum kits on that tour?
No, we traveled with. That was it was my Ludwig kit from high school.
It was a black Ludwig, wasn't it?
No, it was a wood, a maple.
Oh.
It was a maple Ludwig, but I didn't have any bottom heads on
I know.
it.
Yeah.
And Mel Lewis read me the Riot Act, and and I don't know what I was thinking. They sounded pretty awful. And I had a chrome over brass Dynasonic snare drum, which I still have.
Wow.
And the drum set's long gone, but the snare drum remains. The cymbals, Kenton had these ultra large cymbals.
Yeah.
I sold a couple of them with Zildjian's blessings as part of a scholarship fund.
Wow.
I think it's okay to mention, who bought them?
No.
Charlie Watts.
Oh, well.
Wow.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. You had it was a 26-inch ride and 2 24-inch crash rides.
That's absolutely correct.
Yeah. I asked you about them because I knew they were big. And
that's insane. And I had my own new beats that I brought onto the band and my own 22-inch swish. But can you imagine a 24-inch crash?
Oh, they sounded amazing. And Pete, by the way, the drums without the heads on sounded so cool. And I went home, and the next day I pulled off my bottom heads.
Oh no!
Oh yeah,
Right.
and
oh goodness, I feel
guess
terrible.
what happened at the next gig with my dad?
He read you the Riot Act.
Lad. He said, "Oh, he couldn't stand it." He said, "For God's sake, put those heads back on."
Well, I replaced a wonderful drummer in Stan's band. His name was Jerry McKenzie, and he was leaving the band, and I came on. And part of the reason I think Stan decided to hire me because he did so much, not only concertizing but teaching and afternoon workshops in various schools as well as summer camps. But this other drummer, he was a policeman. He was in the Detroit police. I mean, he looked like a cop. This is 1972. I had hair as long as yours, Sam. Just didn't have the lovely curls. You know what? I'm just you guys talk a minute. I'm going to do something fun.
Okay. Simon, I guess I would say, let me fanboy a little bit. Maybe I would give it to you. I have Sin After Sin.
Oh wow!
That would be one of my favorite records that you've been on. I would have to say. Yeah. I love hearing you guys talk about how you remember the sessions, which has always been that's where when I play drums, that's where like I'm at home.
Yeah.
This
Oh,
is when
anyway.
Simon and I met. By the way, that's
Oh wow.
Oh, wow. That's it. Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Wow. Oh, and I
Not
was probably
fun.
a spotty little, well, I had long hair, but spotty little school kid, you know.
Yeah, and here's that drum set, no cymbals.
Oh, that's it.
Wow.
Oh, can I see it? I can't.
Here, oh yeah.
Can you flick the main screen on?
Yeah, let's see if I can do that.
Yes, that's it. Man, that's the kit I wanted. And that 1414 Ludwig floor tom, couldn't
Yeah.
get them in England. Just couldn't get
Oh,
them.
really?
Yep. I had one
Yeah.
on order for a year, never came.
That was a third. You know, it's funny. Ever since then, I mean, occasionally I'll use the two toms up top, but still, most of the time I play a single rack
Yeah.
and two floor. And in fact, my with my Neomod kit, can I mention what I'm doing?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
I'm adding a tom tom. It normally is a 16 by 10, but I'm getting a 14 inch. Is that 9 by 14?
it's a 9x14. Yeah.
So I'll have two floor toms,
Yeah.
which is what I have for all my star kits too. You have a couple more tom toms normally, Simon.
Well, my concept is I just close my eyes, wave my arms about. I'm bound to hit something.
No, you are so beautifully
No.
specific and precise and thrilling when you play. I don't know how you do it.
Oh.
And I wrote you that kind of out of the blue email, but I watched. This was the online festival,
Oh,
which
the drumhead.
the
Drumhead.
Drumhead Festival.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was. I
Yeah.
want to make sure it was the
Yeah.
Drumhead Festival. Stunning what you played. It was great with the band, but the solo piece was, you know, when you get to be my age, um, when you hear or watch and hear a solo drum piece, um, it's got to be something special to not only stand out but just to be able to sit there and want to watch it.
Mm.
And I was so enthralled. You had me from the first note, and you're one of those drummers. I just love to hear everything you play.
Well, I gotta tell you, it's totally mutual. You know, going back to when I first saw you with Stan, it was I tried to learn how to play blues between and betwixt.
Ah,
First of all, it was my favorite arranger of all, Hank Levy.
Hank Levy, yeah.
I was playing along to, Don Ellis Orchestra, because he wrote a lot for Don and a lot for Stan, and I just love his arrangements, his harmonic content, and that was
Oh,
that was my favorite tune on the album.
oh,
And in fact, it was
fantastic.
in 7 because I was like, I with my dad, it was only 4 and 3. That's all we played. So when I was at home, I swore never to play in 4. I only would play in odd meters, and
Ah,
a lot of those were
that's what happened.
Some of Stan's arrangements. There's another live album he did with John Van Olden
John
playing.
Von Olen, yeah.
Yeah.
That was
Uh,
recorded. The live album that was recorded in London.
oh, it was. Yes, you're right. And I've lost that as well. So, and that's a beautiful album. Some great songs on that.
Yeah,
Great
yeah.
tunes.
It kind of,
Um,
for the folks who are watching, and uh, uh, when we talk about Hank Levy, when Simon mentions Hank, if you watch the film Whiplash, uh, Hank Levy composed the tune Whiplash that you see and hear the band play. That rather joyless bunch of musicians and. This is the way Hollywood works, folks. I was asked for my opinion about Whiplash, and I was quite frank, and this was for the local educational KCET, the public broadcasting television station, and so of course, you know, I mean, I wasn't being critical of the director, but I was critical of the film.
Mm.
And I figured, well, that's a bridge I've burnt, and Hollywood is an unusual town. Um, it wasn't the first time that's happened. Where anyway, uh, I was openly kind of critical, and the next thing I know, the director asked me to work on his next film.
Oh,
Uh, so I worked on La La Land,
Wow.
which also received its fair share of criticism. But that's another story for another time. But anyway, yeah, Whiplash. I had nothing to do with that film. In case anyone thinks that I might have been the drummer, I was not.
yeah. But I have to say I went to see the premiere with a couple of Don Perry came as well, and I was
Whiplash.
Whiplash, yeah.
Ah,
And when I was invited, and when that first opening song came on, I went, "Thank you, finally." It's a, I mean, it's a, you're right. It's a Hank Levy composition, but it was the Don Ellis Orchestra that played the original, right? And I just thought, wow, finally, Don is getting some recognition
yeah.
in America, because I feel, in terms of the big bands, he's one of the most groundbreaking bands there was, but he doesn't really get the recognition that the other
So
bands do.
so overlooked. So overlooked.
Yeah.
It's true. And you know, so that was Ralph Humphrey, a wonderful drummer,
Yeah.
playing on the original. And Ralph, uh, you know, he's a Yamaha artist now, and he gets a beautiful sound on his Yamaha kit. But back in the day, he was he had a Rogers drum set, and those Rogers drum sets, boy, they had a sound. And uh, I'm going to kind of do I hope not too clumsy of a segue or U-turn back to this, but uh, the thing about this drum for me is, and I already used the word home, but it has every quality that a vintage drum has. There's something about it that this is like, you know, Simon, you've just built a new home, and I congratulate you after the devastating loss of the home that you were just moved to a few years ago in Ojai to fire. So you have a brand new home, and you were mentioning you have a lot of instruction stickers on everything, but the joy of something new, and yet the things that will be the most important parts of the home are the parts that feel like home.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what this drum does for me. This drum feels like home.
Yeah.
It's the best of modern technology, and yet there's something so artisanship, old fashioned. This is the way a drum should be made, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I'm very grateful, and it's really fun. I'm sorry that I can't say hello to all of you on the floor of NAMM in Anaheim. But you know, the virtual thing had to be, and I'm glad it is. And I hope by this time next year, maybe we can all say hello, and I'm looking forward.
That would be great. Yeah.
Yes.
To that, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of you in person.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Now, so click on.
So I can't see. I'm assuming somebody's watching this, right?
Yes. Yes.
Do we have any questions?
Yeah, let's see if we can get any questions going. Let me check on my end real quick.
Well, if it's just the three of us, it's been
It is
fun.
might be just the three of us. It's been great. I mean, just from TAMA's side, thank you both of you very much for doing this.
We don't have
it's a
to watch
pleasure.
our language now.
It's just a pleasure working with both of you. Peter, was a pleasure working with you on this drum. I'm proud to just even have my small part in it, and
Very, very important part.
yes, thank you. And Simon, the same. You know, I really appreciate you taking the time and hearing your thoughts on the drum, and it's
Thank
just
you.
been amazing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And Peter, I hope you don't think you're going to see this anytime soon.
I have every hope.
Go on
I have
your
every
path.
hope that that drum's going to stay in Ojai for a long time.
I'll buy one. How about that?
No, well, thank you, but no, keep it, please. Make sure he gets a. Does he have the updated badge on it?
Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
That's your drum. That's your drum, Simon.
There it is.
Thank you so much.
You know, Peter's my middle name.
I did not know
No,
Is
is it?
yeah,
that. Wow.
yeah, that's my middle name. Yep.
Wow,
Yeah.
brother.
Well, that's very kind. I'm gonna do a little rough mix of that. Well, it's all demo anyway, so there's no real instruments on it, just a drum, a drummer, and all my MIDI stuff. But just so you can hear it, it's actually it recorded beautifully.
Fantastic. I'd love to hear it. I am going to be doing. If anyone is here, I will be doing a live playing kind of performance with the drum, and I'll turn the voice mic off, and it'll just be from my studio at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time tomorrow. Same bat channel.
Yes, yeah. People can find this on the NAMM website. So log in there, head to the session, and you'll see Peter live tomorrow.
Great. Well, I look forward to that. If are there any questions? If not,
no, there are nothing. There is one question actually. Somebody really is asking how long it took to develop this drum. We both could answer that, but go ahead.
no, you go ahead. Your memory's better than mine.
Generally, specific signature drums, they can take anywhere from 2 years to a year to 6 months, just depending on what it is. This drum, I would say, took the better part of last year. I would say better part of 2020, 9-10 months. It just depends on the vision, and Peter had a very clear vision for what he wanted. Yeah.
It had been. It was at NAMM
Mm.
on the floor where I kind of cornered you and Mitch, and, anyone I could find, and said, I think now's the time. After I'd been with the company for 5 years, and we had the wonderful mezzo snare drum, which is a deeper but smaller diameter size drum, made of stave wood construction. It's a fantastic drum. That's expensive. And I was actually kind of a little shocked when I saw, and that's when I really started to do my homework about the ingredients.
Right.
But folks, this is a pure butter snare drum. There's no margarine in this thing. All right. And nothing was rushed. Now I did have, in addition to Sam's very important input, and Mitch and some of the other designers at TAMA in Japan, Bill Platt, and my colleague professor at the Thornton School of Music, Aron Serfati, who is one of the biggest drum geeks I've ever met in terms of just a nerd, and he knows more about it. So we were able to sit around and kind of well, this drum has that, but this drum does this, and how about that? And when I say sit around, I mean literally it was emails and Zoom sessions. But it was kind of not only picking the best of all possible worlds, but as Simon so beautifully put it, which was so gratifying, getting the elements so they all worked together, they all meshed, they all worked in sync. So the sum could become not only a reflection of its parts, but even greater than its parts.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I think with that, we can end the session then. Again, thank you guys very much.
Thank you, Simon. Thanks so much, and congratulations on your new home.
Oh, thank you.
All the best.
Thank you, and to you, Peter, and best of luck with this drum.
Thanks.
Yeah,
have fun.
It'd be great. And it's almost tea time.
Yes.
Yeah, yes,
Uh,
it is.
Good idea.
So I'm putting the kettle on, and then I'm going
Cheers.
to whiz back up to the house and do a whole bunch of stuff.
Awesome.
Sounds good.
Great,
Yeah.
you
All right.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much,
both,
you
and
guys.
Thanks, everyone.
All
All
right.
right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Sam. Well done.